I preached self-awareness in speeches and in meetings and in whatever for a very, very long time, more than a decade. And I was full of um,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Making Your Mark podcast. I'm your host, Mark Bundang, and today, as usual, I have a very special guest. This one, his name is Martin Featherston. Hey, Martin.
how you doing? Good to see you.
Man, it's good to see you. I remember the first time I met you, Martin. It was back in 2013 when I interviewed for a position called the project management role in Brother. And I remember how green I was back in the day. And
That's
I
why
had,
you wore green today, I assume, for your shirt. So yeah,
does it come across green? Okay.
psychological. Well, it does.
It's interesting because my first feeling about Brother, I remember it was a session where I had to present what I would do in the first 180 days of setting up a PMO. And I remember you got pulled away last second, so you didn't actually get to see my presentation. It was the other members of the management committee. But
That's right. Yeah. Okay, I remember that now. Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I remember. I'm going somewhere with this. I remember that Steven Sandler grilled me really hard, and but you know what? I do know what kind of person he is, so I know it was going in good faith. And then I remember waiting for the verdict, and I remember, well, Martin wants to see you. So then we ended up talking, and that you were probably my first experience in the executive space there, where I had this idea when I was in an MBA that executives are this, and certainly I found that you were down to earth. You had a sense of humor, which I found out very quickly. and I still kept going at Brother in spite of that.
It's fine. Me too.
So, you know what? I'm very excited for this session because I know that you have a wonderful story. And I do want to give you a chance to tell it the way you feel like it's meant to be told. So for the benefit of the audience, Martin, would you please tell them a little bit about your background and where you feel you've made your mark?
In 30 seconds or less.
Sure.
The very first corporation I joined out of school was I'm going back a ways now, was Panasonic. And from Panasonic, I was recruited to work at Canon and brought on as a what they called, I guess, a senior account manager in those days. And I'll tell you how far back that was, is that I remember having a meeting with someone sitting on cardboard boxes in Markham. And this someone was sort of the lead vanguard setup people for a company called Business Depot. And they said that they wanted, Canon products, multiple different, from calculators to printers to whatever. And I was so excited that this had fallen in my lap, and I took it back and I presented it to the finance department and the senior people. And they were all like, some American company comes up here and wants to open up big boxes, and I can't see that working, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, I had accounts like Grand and Toy and buying groups like Basics and other companies like that. And I begged and pleaded, and they gave me a whopping $50,000 credit limit for this unknown company, even though they weren't unknown in the United States. And of course, Business Depot became Staples, and this suddenly turned into, at least for a year or so for me, it was a nonstop climb in terms of revenue and success and so on and so forth, which very quickly after that came with a nonstop climb in quotas and targets. And the company suddenly realizing that, hey, this could be our number one customer, and so from there, and touring the country with various people and companies doing presentations with distributors and such, I ran into a gentleman who, if you were around in those days, you would never ever forget him. His name was Jimmy DeVloris. He was working for Brother at the time. He was a showman. He was the ultimate showman. This is a guy that gave a presentation more in the audience than from on a stage, throwing $5 bills around for anyone who would answer a question and so on and so forth. And then I got up there afterwards representing Canon. And of course, I had a script to read from. I had to stay within a certain line. And I realized, I went for drinks later that night and I saw Jimmy and I sat down with him and I said, that is the last time I will ever follow you in a presentation. It can't be done. And so from that point forward, he agreed that I could go first. And there were a few other presenters too. And so from there, we struck up a bit of a corporate friendship. And then the Japanese had taken over the Brother, which was a franchise at the time for distribution of Brother products in Canada out of Montreal. And Jimmy put in a good word with their president, Mr. Kanazawa, at the time. And they said, we want to see you. And they flew me up and they says, how's his director of sales, director of marketing, or whatever, how does that sound for you on the dealer side? And they pushed a piece of paper with a number on it, which was smaller than the number I was making at Canon. And after a little bit of chatting about that, this wonderful elderly Japanese man said, you commit to us, I will commit to you that your path will be rapid. We will do a complete makeover of this organization. We will renovate it, tear it apart, change it, just a complete re-engineering of and you're going to do that. And at each step, you will assume a new higher role. But that's what we're offering you to start here, to do this. And like a naive, semi-young man at the time, I said, sure, let's do this thing. And I started as director. Within about a year and a half, I was a vice president, and I was senior vice president. And my last 12 years of Brother, I was the president, CEO, chief cook, and bottle wash, and all the other things that's required for that. And that's the position I left in the middle of my 50s in order to make myself happy, write books, paint paintings, and try to forget the left-hand turn I took into the corporate world I was really not that cut out for, to be quite honest.
And how long were you in the corporate world, though? That's interesting.
Let me do a little math here. So after 55, it's 20, so I was about just over 30 years, 32, 33 years. And
wow, that's a long time to follow a left turn, isn't it?
It was a very long, sweeping left turn. It definitely didn't come out where I thought it would come out. And it was a testament to blind ambition, I suppose, or even blind advancement. When you don't have a plan, you end up where you end up. And I suppose some people could say I'm lucky that I ended up in advancements and moving through and getting the job I want. We can certainly chat further about this notion of being lucky, but when one is miscast through their own fault, it's not so lucky, even if it looks from the outside like it's a wonderful thing. But it's not honestly something I ever should have followed in my entire life.
Okay, I'm going to peel back a little bit on that onion, but because for me, you were there for about 30 years, left about when you were in your mid-50s, which means that if you do the math, what was important to you at that age?
At 55?
No, at when you made that left turn. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, the left turn was made long before I actually got a job in the corporate world. the left-hand turn was made somewhere around the end of high school, I guess, where most people sort of decide, what am I going to do, when I go to college or university? And I already knew at that point in time that I wanted to write. That's what I wanted to do. The painting came along later in life. I have a wonderful life right now, which is sort of divided between writing and painting, and neither one makes me any money whatsoever, but I enjoy every bit of it. But of course, back then, when you're deciding something that seems so incredibly weighty on your shoulders, and of course, I say, of course, you don't know this, but I was born in England, and my father, born in England, was a wonderful man. Incredibly intelligent man, scientific. It was nothing for us to sit around on the couch and talk about Big Bang theories and cosmology and physics and things like that. That was how we communicated. And he was a very pragmatic man. And the notion of me going to an art school or for writing or for whatever, even if it was practical like journalism or something like that, I never asked him. I wish I had. He would have told me to follow my heart. I know that now. But at the time, it was like, well, nobody makes money writing. Nobody makes money, or painting or anything like that, which is true. And we can chat about that later too. But there is a big facade built around the book world, and it's an eye opener when you get into it. But nonetheless, you write for passion. You don't write for money. But at that time, it was like, well, I've got to get a girlfriend, got to have some kids, got to get a mortgage. These are things that people do. And, sitting in a small apartment somewhere, this is how I envisioned it, writing away with nothing to eat until, the welfare check came in or whatever, did not sound, especially nice, even though I'd written many things by then. It was my favorite. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze for some reason. It was my favorite classes, English classes, and everything going through school. I loved the notion that one of the teachers would say, "Now your next assignment is to write about this, or your reaction to that, or how you would feel if you were this, or explain what a perfect day sounds to you in 3 pages or less, whatever." I loved those assignments. No one had to ask me to do homework. I dove into these things. And so the left-hand turn wasn't so much when I came out of business administration and got a job and started working through sales or marketing. Marketing was my major, or moving up. The moving up, I don't recall ever doing purposefully. It was just like things fell in my lap, companies came along, offers came along. I just did what I did. And one day they said, well, this is your office now. You're the president. So what would you like us to do? And that was quite an eye-opener because I'd never intended on being the president. And I can give you a little bit of corporate advice right now at this moment. The most fun I ever had at Brother was at senior vice president. That's a great job. You have as much authority as you need to get things done without any of the blame. And when the big bosses come to visit from Japan or the States or whatever, all you get is the pats on the back. Great revenue, great this, good to see you. Let me give you another, accolade or award or whatever. They verbally will say the same thing to the president, but behind closed doors, it's just boxing time. This is when all the that comes out. That the weight comes with that last position. I'm, of course, speaking to you and your audience from my perspective. I'm not painting a big brush here to say everyone will experience that, and I hope nobody takes it that way. This is what I experienced, and experience also requires, the personality that I had within that experience and how I reacted to it. So that's how I got into the corporate world, and how I advanced. As I said, I'm really not sure. Excuse me.
That's interesting because for me, and as I related to my own experience. I've seen people try so hard to get into that, to the next rung of the ladder, and they don't make it, and then your experience was, well, it felt like you were kind of pushed up, I guess, through no fault of your own, I guess.
I still to this day can't explain it. I don't know. Other people could explain it to you, my advancements. They would be probably more than happy to tell you what they saw in me or what they wanted, or maybe I was extremely good at playing the game, and it is a game. Maybe my manipulation skills are better than I'm willing to admit out loud, but playing this game, it was not difficult for me at all. And but with that, you have to have a certain amount of the goods to back it up. You can talk yourself into the next level, but you got to show up and do something too. So again, I'm not bragging. I don't know how I did those things. I don't know how I ended up where I was, but I imagine if we had a couch and a psychologist here, I could probably do a better job of this for you.
I guess where I'm getting at is, I find it extremely fascinating that you lasted that long in the corporate role, because of what I know about you.
Thank you. Such a nice compliment, I think.
Yes, I mean, it's not a comment on your ability. It's a compliment to you on your personality, and like what kind of human being you are. But it's because for me, what I'm interested in understanding was, you've kind of described a little bit about what the job is like if you're the president versus the senior vice president.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe describe a little bit about what life was like in both. Well, like, what were you asked to do? And just because I know a lot of the audience they're not also experienced in the corporate world, so maybe you can give a bit of description about that.
Again, it's my experience.
Yeah.
By no means am I suggesting that every company is structured this way, or I wouldn't know how every company is structured, but I would say that the vice president, or at least my role as vice president, was a function of taking sort of the ball and running with it. So it's like, we want to do that. We want to develop this. We want to add a new department. We have to get costs down in this. We have to do whatever. And depending on the presidents that I've worked for, they were either micromanagers or they were what I would call probably directory, or some people would even say visionary. This is how I see it. This is how I want it. Off you go. Which was more like my style when I became president. The result is good president to work for or bad president to work for. I always learned something. There was always a voice in the back of my head that said I would never do that, or I'll do that one day if I ever get the opportunity. It's a leadership observation thing. I learned more from what I would argue to be poor examples of leadership than I did from great leaders. Much more. It's much easier to file away something that you go, you'll never catch me doing that. I will never do that. It's a great, if you get the jump between vice president and president, if you get to do that, it's important, first of all, to stay humble, which is very difficult to do. And it's very important to immediately sit down and take stock of all those things you remembered through your life that, boy, that was a dumb move. Person shouldn't have done that. That made no logical sense to me, whatever the case may be. Log it away. Funny enough, most of the things I logged away were about leadership qualities in people, not so much as in decisions. Lots of decisions can be wrong. I never had any mistakes, but I'm sure other people, ran into a couple. But the things I noticed most were those bosses who said employees are the heart and soul of our company, were very, very important. And then went about to do things, pay people certain ways, give them a working environment that was the antithesis to that. that says, we don't like you and we don't want you here. But, verbally, you're so very, very important to us. And, and then there were the ones that said very little, but did a lot. I want to review pay scales. I want us to be the best paid in the industry. I want us to have really good, I want this to be a destination company. I want it to be the best, in our case, on the West Island, and we won awards for that in Montreal and such. Why? Because turnover, first of all, is probably one of the greatest expenses anyone ever goes through. Training somebody forever and ever, and then they go, well, I'm not paid enough, or I don't like this. And this is any position. You take time to take a beginner and teach them forklift truck and teach them this and how to do that and properly load trucks and do this and do that. And then they go, oh, it's 50 cents more an hour down the street, so I'll go take that job. Well, why aren't you paying them a whopping $2 more than what they pay down the street? Because you got a dollar investment in that. Now, why aren't you continuing with their career advancement? Like, everybody in every position wants to say, well, I think I can do what my boss does. Good, so let's try. Let's get you some, training or whatever the case may be. Watching leaders who could look around and very, very quickly determine where things like turnover was happening and why intrigued me. I was thinking, where does that knowledge come from? And I'd love to sit here and tell you that it is this years of wisdom and all this good stuff. And I'm sure some people would tell you that. It's not. It's that little thing called common sense. Throughout the entire career of watching leaders, there were leaders with common sense, and then there were leaders without common sense. We have to save money. It's really important. My boss is on my back to save money. Let's stop marketing. Okay, yeah. That's probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But there are leaders that will do that. They will lose focus on the repercussions and the end results, which is what a president has to keep in mind. And they will focus on tasks that are given them by the board of directors or their bosses or whatever. You want me to save money? No problem. I will increase the price of all of my products to the marketplace right now. 6 months later, they're explaining to their bosses why the sales decline has happened across the last 6 months and why they're still not making a lot of money. Their margins are better, but their sales are down, so they're still not making money. So, I mean, there's only so many levels where pragmatism can get you by. And then you have to look forward a little bit and apply some common sense. And you have to be willing to put your job on the line when you get to that presidential spot. I don't think I ever put my job on the line as a vice president, but as the president, there were numerous times of saying, well, this is how I want to do it. So you're going to, not in these exact words, but, if you want someone else to do it, then get someone else to do it because I can't do this. It's not the right move or whatever. You have to be willing to have that argument. I'm not saying I won them all, but you have to be willing to do that. So okay. I don't know. I was a long-winded VP to president difference, but the difference is massive on the shoulders in terms of the weight. It was for me. I look back at who came after me, your friend of mine, Steve Sandler, has very different personality traits than me. And I'm not so sure that he would agree with me on that weight. He may got into that role and said, well, no, this is not a problem at all. But then again, I watched him through his whole career and he took everything on himself and more. And that was, I consider that weight. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know his inner psyche, but perhaps for some people, getting to president is a weight off. You can delegate everything and move on.
I guess my question to you then, after hearing the difference that you kind of perceive between the senior vice president role and the president role, is how much of the role did you, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, who did you have to be to succeed in the role of president?
What a good question. Can I examine the question first before I give you the answer? I love how you framed that question. Who did you have to be? Now, you either just did that on purpose, which I'll give you all the accolades in the world, or it was just a wording thing. But to me, it hits home. I had to be somebody I'm not and never could be to be president, and arguably VP too. I mean, there comes a point where a lot of the roles kind of are similar, or if not the same. I mean, many senior VPs have multiple departments and they're fully responsible for them. So in that sense, it very much is a president job. It's just perhaps on a smaller scale than the entire company. I would like to talk to you about self-awareness, if I could, to answer that question.
Sure.
Self-awareness, by my definition, is recognizing the facade that you work under or live under or whatever. Recognizing who is the genuine you and who is a you that has developed perhaps over decades in some cases in order to achieve a purpose, get a job done, be a certain thing to certain people, whatever. Everyone has a facade. Everyone. And I'm willing to defend that with any of your listeners right now, that everyone does. Some of it's very subtle and small, and some of it is gigantic, which I would put myself in that category. There are people who, amazingly enough, can come home from a day's work and they are fundamentally the same person that they were in their job as they are when they get home. Those are the people I put in the very small category. Doesn't mean they don't have some facade to them. And I hesitate to use the word fakeness. It's not fakeness. It's survival. People have to survive in environments. They have to be certain ways. Okay, that forklift driver and the guys or girls that he works with and what he does every day, he doesn't take that personality home, if you know what I mean. Challenge yourself on this a few times. When you find something funny at home or with your significant others, how do you laugh? And do you laugh the same way at work? Or do you laugh uproariously when a certain person makes a joke because, hey, it's my boss? And you may not even notice that you're doing it. I'm not saying these things are necessarily intentional, right? But we aren't the same. We aren't the same in at a party as we are at home. Many of us men have got a smack in the back of the head on the drive home because they're like, well, who are you trying to impress? What were you doing? You never did that before. Why were you suggesting? So that happens. You're different when you meet certain types of people. You're different when you meet people that you're in awe of. And conversely, you're different if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I just love the book you wrote. I've read it 3 times. I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Someone like me, who for the longest time was very willing to talk about the size of my ego, gets very humble at moments like that now. Very humble. I'm very thankful that at least I got some time in my life to hear that from somebody. So, yeah, the self-awareness, come back to the statement, self-awareness shatters the facade, okay? So I'll let you in on a little secret, and you may have even noticed it when you were at Brother. I preached self-awareness in speeches and in meetings and in whatever for a very, very long time, more than a decade. And I was full of shite because I didn't really know what it meant, because I wasn't really self-aware. And breaking that facade, knowing yourself completely, is accepting the fact that you got to where you are with these facades, with the mistakes you made, with the horrible things you did in life. And all those things that you like to put aside and allow your ego to flourish in this little land of saying, I achieved, I did that. I was smart enough to look at my numbers, look at my track records, look at this, look at that. None of those were achievable without the yin to your yang. But if you're not self-aware, truly self-aware, preaching it is wonderful. I'm preaching it now to you, but I was preaching it for years at Brother, how people needed to know themselves. Well, here's what knowing yourself really means. It means you quit. It means you leave the company. Why? Because you now realize you've been wasting your time. This gives me no joy. This gives me no happiness. I don't want to do this anymore. You know how hard that is, especially if you're younger and you spent all these years in university, and you say, this is my path I've chosen. I'm going to do this. And a few years into it, you go, I don't like this. I really don't like this. It gives me nothing in life. It took me a very, very, very long time to get there. And that is one of the reasons why, as you pointed out earlier, I survived so long. I maintained that facade so long without it shattering around me, whether I wanted it to or not. And I'll tell you something, I really came to these conclusions roughly 2 years or so before I left the company. And it was the worst 2 years of my life after that, because going back to a job that you've had an epiphany or a career or a function, that you've had this epiphany that is, I don't like this. I don't like who I am. I don't like my facade that I portray. I don't like the nasty things I have to do that nobody wants to talk about. I don't like the decisions I make that hurt people. And I'm not proud of who I am. And I'm not proud of what I've accomplished. It's meaningless to me. I picture my headstone on a grave. 10 straight years of double-digit corporate advance revenue. Really? Who cares? I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble that's listening to this and saying, that's what I want to achieve in life. Is great. If it makes you happy, that's great. It didn't make me happy. It was meaningless to me. It was such a waste of 30 years to a certain degree. And I kept going back to that. Why have you spent every flight to Japan, every flight here, every flight there, writing humor, one-day novels, short stories? I had 110 short stories in a notebook that I'd written over the course of my career at Brother. Any psychologist would go, man, are you doing the wrong thing? But you know how hard it is to walk away. Walking away from a presidency is a difficult task. But walking away from any career, not job, career, is a hard thing to do. It's terrifying. But what if I make the wrong mistake? Well, you already have. You have to admit that to yourself and your self-awareness. You already have made that mistake. Perpetuating it doesn't do anything. So that last 2 years at Brother, I was completely self-destructive. Completely. Like, I won't go into details. Some of them are very personal, but I didn't care anymore. I literally didn't care. And if any of my bosses are watching this one day and look back, no, I still got the job done, because that's also part of my psyche, I guess. The job got done. I wouldn't say necessarily diligently, but I hated every minute of it. I would go from Toronto to Montreal once a week for 3 days, and parking in my parking spot in Montreal and going inside and trudging up those stairs to the second floor to go to my office. Those steps and those stairs, and my legs got heavier and heavier every week, just trying to turn that corner, walk towards my wonderful assistant in my office, and do this. Hi, how's your weekend? How was things? How was da 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 da? And those, by the way, those things are genuine. People are genuine. I loved the people at Brother. Even the ones I didn't like, I still loved, if that makes any sense to you. There are some people that have certain traits or whatever. It's tough, but I loved them all. They did an amazing job for me. That's the God's honest truth. I'm not sure I did an amazing job for them in the last 2 years, but there was no turning back after that wall shatters. Yeah. You suddenly start realizing that I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to laugh that loud at somebody's jokes. I don't want to, I don't want to pretend anymore. And with that, I chose the term very carefully. Self-destruction comes with that. You start doing things that you would never do in your life, at risk of this, that, or the other thing happening, but you don't care. You don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. When I left, I sat for a few months at home, of course, second guessing everything, second guessing why I just did that, why, you know, why was I the way I was for the last 2 years? I mean, everybody could see it around me. Everybody could see the things I was doing that were not becoming of what I should have been doing. But it was, I don't want to go down that ridiculously cliche line of, the cry for help kind of thing. I don't believe I am that way. But it took me literally 2 years to before I just escaped, if you want to put it that way. If I could actually now afford and have the security to say, I want to write books, I want to paint pictures, I don't want to think about this again. So I would say that there's two types of self-awareness. Pretty much everyone you talk to is listening to me right now go, I'm pretty self-aware. Maybe. Generally takes a crisis or something for that to really happen. It's not hard to truly check into, though, and truly see if you are the same person in different scenarios and things like that. But there are the people that say they're self-aware, and what they mean by that is they know their limitations, their faults, the things they do really, really well. And they're talking about task-based self-awareness. I know what I'm good at. I know how I can do. I know what I'm bad at. I know what I should stay away from. Then there's the existential level of self-awareness, which is, who the hell are you? Who are you and what makes you happy? Those two simple little questions are probably the hardest two questions for anyone to answer ever. It has nothing to do with career anymore. This is about soul searching. Who are you and what makes you happy? It is, most people would look at you, a lot of people would look at you and say, well, I can tell you going to this crappy job every day doesn't make me happy, but I got to earn a living and I got to go. And so I'm doing what I'm doing for the right reasons. And that's noble. That's very noble to do something, I guess, and do it well when you don't like it. It's was a little bit different for me because I thought I liked it. I thought I loved this game. And to have it all come crashing down made me really reflect on the last 30 years of whether that was a complete waste of time. Now that was 8 or 9 years ago when I left. I no longer feel it was a waste of time. I feel it was inevitable. I feel it was something I would have done with my various needs, weaknesses, desire for security, whatever the case may be. It's something I had to do, maybe not in that format, but so it would be denial actually for me to say that wasn't who I was. It was who I was at the time, and it's something I should have just recognized a lot sooner and tried to divert to other things that made me happy. One of my Japanese bosses had a 2-word motto for his life, and it was seek joy. That's all he ever said was seek joy. He said I could talk for the next 2 hours on what that means, but it certainly means do not seek the things you know will not make you happy, the people you know that you don't want to be around, the tasks you have to do, or even the jobs you have or whatever. If you know flat out, and most people do to a certain degree, right?
Right.
I mean, Mark, if someone has said to you at or prior to university, they're hiring down the street at General Motors and you can work the assembly line for $39.50 an hour plus all benefits and all this, and retire in 20 years, you would say, you don't know me well at all, do you? I would go mental after 6 hours of doing this on an assembly line every day for the rest of my life. I'd blow my head off. So most people know to a certain degree. It's a lot easier to know what you don't want to do than it is to know what you do want to do. That's a much different question to ask yourself. perhaps because it's open-ended.
This is interesting because I wanted to explore the epiphany moment that you mentioned before you left Brother. So there was a 2-year gap between when you actually left and when you came up with you had this epiphany. At the moment of this epiphany, was it a case that you were self-aware enough to know this is not the path, but did you know what you wanted to do at that point, or it just this is not what I'm supposed to be doing?
Up to that point, some of the advice I got early in my career was, and I'm sure you've heard this before from many people, surround yourself by people who are better than you in every task they have. Make sure the guy that reports to you that handles finance knows a hell of a lot more about finance than you do. Make sure the guy in marketing is one hell of a marketer, et cetera, et cetera. Don't see it as a threat. We all know those bosses who, are just do as I say. I'm not interested in your opinion. Invest in the fact that in reality, in most companies, surrounding yourself with the best will elevate your position. It did that every single time I ever ran a department or a responsibility, you name it, by immediately ensuring, and in some cases getting rid of, those nasty things that presidents never talk about, or VPs, the people that I didn't want there, and being insistent that they get the credit and that they get the accolades for what they did, tied that group together, and in every group together, every department together, whatever you want to call it. And the side effect of all that elevated me. I'm not even suggesting I knew that at the time, perhaps later on in life, but certainly early enough. It was one of those things where it's like, well, I got promoted. I didn't ask to get promoted. I didn't see why necessarily. When I got to the position of president, everybody around me, and I could nitpick and say maybe here, maybe there could have been better. But in reality, everybody around me was better than I was. And they were at the VP levels and the senior director levels. They were all better. Steve was better than me. Steve was better than I ever could have been in the minutia of getting that stuff done. I was not a micro guy, not in any respect. The funny thing is, when you've reached the pinnacle and you've delegated just about everything to these wonderful people who know what they're doing, you don't have a heck of a lot left. You don't have a heck of a lot to go to work to do. I'm not talking about volume of work now. I'm talking about the stuff that gets you happy in what you do, gets you intrigued. There's not a lot left when the engine you created is ticking away year over year beautifully. And all those things you used to do, which was, I have a desire to go from A to C. Now, come on in here, people. Let's look at how we can get that. How can we streamline this? How can we cut costs in call centers and get more customer satisfaction? How do we stop turnover in warehouses, and on and on and on? And these are visions to an end goal that were my responsibility, very much so, minus the overall targets which the corporation set and such. And these were becoming less and less and less. Steve was fundamentally running the company near the end in terms of operations. So this isn't about boredom. This isn't about me not having anything to do. This is having me no challenges left in life. And with no challenges at all, that led to a lot of self-examination. And as I've already implied, I did not like what I saw through these, self-reflective glasses that said, why are you here? What is your purpose anymore? You're taking home a very big paycheck, and perhaps only because of the responsibility. Perhaps that's fair, but it's not satisfying. It's not who I am. I can't play this game anymore. And I hope some of your listeners, and yourself included, will understand sooner than later that it is just a game. It is 100% a game. There are people who would want you to believe that for whatever just causes or whatever end goals, that you're working hard or you're working weekends or you're doing this or you're doing that. It's business. I'm talking about the corporate world now, just the corporate world. It's business. If my bosses had come to me while you were working and said, I think we're going to consolidate most of our operations with the US. Would you mind firing 200 people? I'd have fired 200 people, including you. That would have been my job. So you cannot now turn that around and say, look at all the wonderful people and intelligent people I had, like Mark, that had these amazing ideas for just project management, doing this and doing that. And on any given Wednesday, I could have said, you're gone. We need to save some money on payroll. You're gone. That is part of the game that nobody wants to talk about. But that is part of the job that stops at a certain desk. And you can't get away with it. You can't have someone come up to you in the parking lot and say, I got fired today, and as president go, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's terrible. I didn't know that was happening to you. Of course you did. You probably signed off on it with your HR department, right? Yeah. So all of that stuff is swirling in your head going, there is very little actual purpose for this that can't be undone by board of directors somewhere around the world going, just let's run it out of the States. We don't need a Canadian operation. Shut it down. That sentence took about 11 seconds. And that would have been like a good soldier carried out because it's a corporate game and that's what people do. When that hits home, and when, like I said, you just don't want to do it anymore, and what you're doing has no fulfillment whatsoever, it just all kind of tumbles. If you have ever so desire to read the first book I put out, Nothing Sacred, the entire book is about listening to the universe, but it's written as a comedy because I feel that messages get through a lot easier with a smile on your face than they do by preaching or doing a nonfiction book on connecting with yourself and such. Like, I hate self-help books. I think those people should be shot. But if all I have is an opinion, and if I want to share it and not preach it, then sometimes humor is the best way to look at life.
So that brings us to the next one. Actually, this is the part that I'm excited about because after that career arc, I guess, coming to an end, I want to explore a little bit about that swing into doing something that you enjoy, what brings joy into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go a little bit into that time in your life where, you know what, maybe I should be doing this instead, you know, and then you actually were in a position to do it?
For the most part, I'll focus on the writing because I've been painting for 30 years and it's the sort of thing that brings me a lot of joy as well. But to address your point, when did I know? As I kind of implied earlier, I've known my whole life. I've been writing my whole life. I've been writing on every plane I ever sat on, or I actually learned to love those 12-hour flights to Japan because I could get about 6-7 chapters written or an entire short story or something like that. That was even long before this sort of revelation of just go do it. It's the only thing that's going to make you happy. Like, do it all the time. I already knew it made me happy. The last few years I was with Brother, being the pragmatist I also am, it was a search with my financial advisor to go, can I? Is it okay? Can I eat? Will I be able to do this? Because that's still very much part of me, right? I couldn't have made the leap if I didn't know there was enough in the bank, at least to live a reasonable, normal everyday life and not have to worry about it. Nobody's was suggesting I wanted to get rich, and I've never considered myself rich. I don't believe that would make me happy, and I've never chased it. I chased security, though. I'd like to know that my house is covered and this is done, that is done. So with that fundamentally agreed to as you got enough, you need a few investments here and there, and we need to tweak this and whatever. So when it became the realization that I could now transition, there was a brief period, as I mentioned, of a couple of months after I left Brother, where there was a lot of soul searching. I didn't feel bad about not being at Brother. I did miss a lot of the people. And there are routines, despite the fact that we complain about routine, that got me up at a certain time in the morning, got things done. I missed Carrie Lynn, my assistant, very, very much. My work wife, we used to call her, did a heck of a lot more for me than my real wife would do at home in terms of pick up your clothes, do this, change that. If you want to do this. Of course, at work, I would never even have to ask. People would stick their head in the door. Do you want me to make you coffee? Do you want this? You have to be at this meeting in 5 minutes. Do you want me to delay it? Do you want it? These kind of things are done for you after a while. And so there's things like that, of course, and I'm saying almost tongue in cheek, that you miss. You miss somebody doing everything for you, okay? And you do. And I don't think I've ever once missed the job, but I did flounder for a while with, can I really write? Am I actually any good at this? Can I see myself doing 8 hours a day? I tried to go into writing like I was a corporation, like it's these were the things I had to do between 9 and 5. That failed miserably. You can't force yourself to write. If you're in the flow and it's coming out, you can write till 2 o'clock in the morning, and the only thing stopping you is falling asleep. And if it's not there, you can stare at the page as long as you want, and anything you type, you're going to look at the next day and go, "What a pile of shite that is!" Like just erase it all. So the writing had to take over. The stories had to be written when they wanted to be written, and that's when things started to get really good. And then I found an editor who I adored in England, and we struck up a great relationship. And he, as I mentioned, I am Irish technically by descent, but I was born in England, and I share that British humor, as you may have noticed when you worked with me, and that British humor is things like Python, and it's things like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams's book, who I have tried very, very hard to duplicate his style wherever possible in my own writing. And running across this wonderful editor said, first of all, he gave me these words of wisdom. He says, if you want to make money in the book business, edit, don't write. There's no money in writing, but editors always get paid for going over all your work and correcting it and making it nice. And he was what we call in the book business a developmental editor. Okay, it's not grammar, not punctuation, not is this a good sentence? Does it? No, he was a story developer, right? He would look at the order of the story you're telling, whether you're convincing people, are the characters believable, all of these things. And he fell in love with Nothing Sacred, which is the first book, which I don't know. Strangely enough, I have a copy, Mark, just sitting here. And I was going to put it away before our chat, but I'll leave it here for 10 minutes, if that's okay with you. And then we can...
Okay. I had no idea that was going to happen.
So when writing Nothing Sacred, and he got the original manuscript, and he said, Martin, what the hell is this? He said, I love the snippets you sent me. I love the bits. I love the concept of the story. I love the humor. You've sent me 180,000 words. This is bigger than the dictionary. Like, what are you doing? Well, this is part of the problem of being a naive new writer, is no one told me to stop. No one told me how long a book should be. He says, most books are 90,000 words tops for novels. You've got 2 books in one here. You've given me 180,000 words. What am I supposed to do this? First of all, it's going to cost you a fortune. for me to sit and go through this when half of it needs to be thrown away. So this was my introduction into the fact that just being able to write has some constraints on it, you know. And in reality, again, it comes back to the corporate world. Surrounding yourself with amazing people that know what they're doing is the secret to success. Going into something saying, I was in corporate business for 30 years, I can write a book. No, you can't. You can create a story, but writing a book requires a whole bunch of people, from cover designers to editors to line editors for those punctuation things that shouldn't be there and stuff. And so a team rose up again. So writing suddenly seemed to me not like a solo process. That scared me a little bit, but kind of like what I was used to in the past with a team. But a team that would violently respond to you in terms of whether they thought something was good or not. There was none of this sugarcoating. Malcolm, my editor, would be more than happy to send editing notes, and in the corner it would just say, "What is this crap?" And then like a big X through an entire page or something like that. Or this doesn't push the story forward, or your character would never do this. You spent 150 pages telling us who it is, and then he does this. He wouldn't do that. So the learning curve started from scratch. Started from like you just day one of school. And it was delightful. And the end product was my bucket list thing to say, I got a publisher, and the publisher published it. And that was kind of the end of the journey from the standpoint that I could do it. I did it. I never expected people to love it. I never expected the emails that I got, some of them quite emotional over how they felt. I never expected the reviews I got. These things were so surreal that I had to dismiss them as a few crazy people out there in the world that probably like humor that nobody else likes. But it honestly blew my mind. And they would not let me not write a sequel. They said, we have to know what happens next. You owe it to us, Martin. How's that for a shock? You owe us the sequel. You left us on a cliffhanger. And I did. Where's the next book? And so funny enough, I have I know, I don't know why they're sitting on my desk, but I have the next book here, and The Universe, Earl Grey and a Duck is an interesting title for one person's self-reflection in life about value and purpose and many other things that we've been talking about in this. But I don't want anyone who sees this right now to go, that sounds preachy, that sounds boring. You'll never notice. Both books are comedies. They are tongue-in-cheek. I've been told they're very funny. And they are for people who like to think, though. This is not slapstick comedy. They are for people that like a good twisty Irish tale all the way to the end, and that's probably comes from my heritage, with surprise endings and a lot of laughs. And I found out that I had two types of readers. I had and I don't mean this as an insult. I had the superficial readers who said, that is a funny book. And then I had the others that went, my outlook on purpose, life, God, the beginning has changed since I've read this. Those are the ones that gave me shivers because I never thought I could ever affect somebody's life like that. And both are marvelous, though. At face value or deeper and deeper, there's a lot of philosophy in there, but it's not boring philosophy. There's a hint of physics, though, that might bug a few people. Not much. So anyway, sorry to shamelessly plug my books like that. I had no intention other than they happen to be sitting here. But yes, that transition. Here's the short answer to your question. You can just use this. The transition became very easy when I realized that even writing is a team sport, and I've always been used to having teams do this. I also realized, if I may, 2 more minutes on the subject, that writing is the same basic job as what I had as president when I was with Brother. It doesn't look the same, but at Brother, with the company ticking along beautifully and all these wonderful people around me doing their jobs to the finest, my job was supposed to become navigation. This way, that way, less, more. With what purpose? To get to here. To get to this point this year, this point within 3 years. I think you may remember we always had a 3-year plan and a 1-year budget. Get to here, get to that. And it's not just targets. This is how, this is when, this is who. It's exactly the same as writing a book. I have an idea for a story. I know where I'm going to start it. I know more or less where I'm going to end it. All I got to do is write the B part. Now, the B part was typically done at Brother by all these wonderful people around me, the implementers, the operational types. So I had to put my old hats on of when I could actually put plans and operational activities into place to fill in the story between this is where it starts, this is how it ends. And when I got going on that, everything just seemed to clarify. This is the pace of the story. This is where it'll go. This has to happen before this. This has to happen early but subtly. So when it's repeated later on, it's clear. Whatever. I actually felt like I was just more or less doing that type of leadership job again, getting the story, which didn't even feel like mine anymore. It kind of wrote itself and the characters wrote themselves. Getting that story from A to C and filling in the blanks. And so perhaps a bit contrived example, but I really do feel that the activities are the same, very much so. And in getting these out. And I'm writing the book I'm writing right now, which is about half done because I didn't get a lot done in the summer. I took the summer off. Is not part of this storyline. It's a different storyline that's starting. But I'd shelved the notion of writing a comedy about corporate reorganization and restructuring. I shelved it because I didn't want to do it too soon after getting out of that world. And I needed time to reflect and to find humor in and find something that is not preachy, but is just, I would suggest what I'm writing is not necessarily be read by someone in a corporation. It's to be read by someone who wants a good laugh. But it's something that I'm now enjoying working my way through with lots of memories of characters and things and mess ups and stuff incorporated into fiction that I'm hoping people will like just as much as the Earl Grey stories that I write. I won't plug any more, I promise.
No, listen, I loved that. I loved how passionate it just came out. Like how this part of your life, this part of your career journey has really brought the joy. You can really see it. And I think that's what everyone should be seeking as well. Like that. It just you mentioned something earlier on about how there was the last 2 years that you were there. I was there for the last 3 years of your career at Brother.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, because I think you left in 2016. So did I. Yeah. But I was there in 2013. I don't know if I saw it back then, the difference between you in 2013 and you in 2016. I don't know without this discussion that we just had that I would be able to pin it. But now that I look back, you can see it. You can see the change in energy from the person that I do an interview with.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to be part of a small part of you telling your story and how it's come, to this point where where you have so much joy now in your life to talk about, and to be able to influence that many people with those two, like the more superficial one and the other one where it's like deep and profound, both equally impactful. I would say to me that's inspiring for me. Is the sun bothering you? Is the sun is the sun bothering you or something? Or
I'm going to burst into flames in a couple of seconds.
I know that you're trying to. Okay, you know what we can. You know what we can do. We can wrap it up a little bit. Like usually, what I do is I ask the guest um, if you have any overarching advice, given what you've spoken about today. What would it be?
Don't do extensively long interviews without a pair of sunglasses somewhere near you for when the sun shifts. That's what I would. It's very
Thank
good
you.
advice. I think everyone should follow.
Absolutely.
What was the question?
It was the what is the overarching advice that you would give based on what you've talked about today? Is there any
Don't be afraid to find out who you really are, warts and all. Don't be afraid to look backwards. Don't be afraid to examine childhood memories. Don't be afraid to look for those areas that aren't so nice, that aren't so good, that are some people or perhaps yourself would be ashamed of or wouldn't like to come out. Embrace them because they're the same part of you that makes you who you are right now. You're not allowed, in my opinion, to say, I am who I am today for all of these wonderful reasons. No, you are who you are today because you're also a this and a bit of a prick and a that and a this. And it all arrived at this moment. And you can't deny that. And you can't separate the two. It's more than humility. You can fake humility. God knows. I have in the past. I'm sure everybody has. It's being true to yourself, right? Mm-hmm. The last thing you want to do is fake it to yourself. And just embrace it because it's all good in the end. I'm not a fatalist. I know you might think I'm a nihilist, perhaps, but I do honestly believe that not exploring and accepting all those other parts of yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you want to be self-aware, then you also have to love what you find, warts and all. And, and if you only explore half of yourself, what's the point? You're just building up another facade that needs to be broken down at some point in your life. And
one final question for you, Martin, before you burst into flames with the sunlight. If someone watches this and is compelled by
highly unlikely. I'm sorry. You got a jab in earlier on. I thought I'd jab back. So go ahead. It's true. If somebody watches this.
Yeah, if somebody watches this and is compelled by whatever they heard, whatever it is, whether there's a moment or a topic or an entire 30 minutes or something like that, how do they reach you? There's a few ways. The easiest way is me to filter you through my website because it's easiest to remember. It's www.anywhen, one word, not anywhere, anywhen.ca. And there's a way to contact me through that website. You can also try info@anywhen.ca if you just want to send a direct email. And you could also try the RCMP. They'll find me if they're diligent enough. And you might even locate the province I'm in. So there you go. I will put all those things as links in the description when you post it on YouTube. And I appreciate that. Yeah. I'll, if I can think of another one on the spot right now, but if I can think of another one, I'll because I have so many emails, but but I am on Facebook too. I'm also on Instagram. So all those ways I can be contacted. Perfect. Well, I hope after they watch this, they certainly do, because if anything else, there's going to be an interesting conversation coming out of it. So
love to hear from them. I've been accused of not taking life very seriously, making jokes about stuff, hence my writing. I actually take life very seriously. There's a lot of horrible and tough and bad things that happen in life, and I don't dismiss those for myself or for anyone else. But I will tell you that anyone who wants to contact me, I would do so under the greatest joy and the greatest notion of keeping it upbeat, joyful. I'm not into I'm not into comparisons, bashing, any of that stuff. I don't want to talk about other people. I don't want to talk about, you know, what ifs in this world. I don't have a time or a place for that anymore. I like to keep a smile on my face. I like to keep whatever number of years I have left in my life to be joyous. And that's what I'm pushing for.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the wisdom, and thank you for making me laugh.
The pleasure is all mine. You know that. And, you know, if you want to do over, if you can't use any of this, no problem. I'll do it over again.
That's awesome.
All the very best to you, my friend. It was fantastic. I appreciate everything.
Thank you very much, Mark. For everyone else, thank you for watching. I hope you got what you needed from it. And I hope that I'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Hey, thank you very much for making it this far into the podcast. I really appreciate it. And you know what? We're not new anymore. We've got a couple of seasons under our belt. But I do want to say that we still need your help in trying to grow the audience. So if you can, please comment, please like, please subscribe to whichever platform you are watching this video in. So thank you. Have a good one.